And we are really live, guys. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the latest edition of the African American Athlete. Uh, I am Rickey Hampton, along with my good brother and frat brother, Michael Roberson, coming to you on a Monday evening. Hope everybody had a great weekend out there. We're joined tonight by our friend and the great writer from the BASN newsroom, the only Mr. Michael Lewis Ingram,
How y'all doing?
brother internationally known, that's covered sports all over the world. And Mike is going to spend the hour with us tonight. And
Good
fellas,
to
it's good to see you, Mike, and of course, good to see you, frat brother Mike. But we got a lot to talk about, fellas. And let's just go right to the NBA Finals, Heat and Nuggets. Nuggets won that first game pretty easily. I went in there thinking, okay, this is probably Miami's best chance because the whole thing with the Nuggets sitting around. With Mike Robinson, they took them out fairly easy in game one, but last night it was an entirely different story. Start with you, Michael. Get your impressions. Then we go to Michael Lewis Ingram.
All right. Well, yeah, I was saying that last night. I said they look like game two, look like game one. Should have been. They just look lethargic, rusty. And what they got it down with about like 10-0 or something like that. It was like, what are y'all doing out here? I said, this is an ample time to take advantage of this. This is your first time ever in the finals. You're the last team of the merger/absorption to make it to the finals. And only one other team has won, and that's the Spurs. So you guys could be number two, but you're going to make this whole scenario be this is the greatest coach ever out of Spoelstra. And, of course, the Miami culture, and then all this other sickening stuff is about to happen. Himmy, Jimmy. So it's like it's for some people, they're happy. The South Florida people are happy, and they also have their hockey team in the finals too. But that's going to be another topic that we're going to talk about. But, Denver could make super history this year, but they might end up being another of the burn victims from the Heat. Start with the Bucks and the Knicks and then Celtics. And, I mean, I can't even understand it. This is unbelievable what the Heat are doing. They were 3 minutes away from being totally out. The Bulls had them down 3 minutes left and blew that game, and this is how these guys backed into the playoffs, and they could possibly be champions on that scenario. It'd be the weirdest scenario ever.
But Michael Lewis, I don't see how they can beat them. I mean, clearly they're capable of doing it, but like Mike Roberson said, hell, I don't see how they beat the Celtics. I don't see how they just keep winning.
There's shooters and there's scorers. And you got to have that one guy or guys who have that killer factor in them. Like they talk about having the dog in them and whatnot. And the Miami Heat definitely has a dog in Jimmy Butler. I mean, nobody knew how good he was coming out of Marquette. But on hardwood, he is money. He seems to have that kind of attitude where nobody in this court is better than I am with the ball. And if it's a matter of the game itself, you can imagine this is the kind of guy that used to be on the court running fouls. He takes the last shot and says game as he walks away and the ball goes in the net. And that was the kind of game Butler had last night. The first game, he was kind of average. And the second game, he turned it up. And to Denver's credit, they got here. It's okay. But this was a team that they did mark in time. They would either score 150 points and walk off the court smiling, or they would grind it out. And that would be like, okay, the last shot didn't go in, we won. And this is one of those deals. Butler just took them out the game with just several one-on-ones. And we got to give Nikola Jokic credit. He is a white guy from Europe who can legitimately play. He's the first European I've ever seen since Drazen Petrovic, who's got a full-on game. He can do all things. He does all things well. He's not the second coming of God like they'll make him when Denver wins, if they win, but he can play.
Yeah. I'm with you there, and but they are really in danger now.
Mm-hmm.
Losing that game, Michael Robinson, because going to Miami, you know Miami's going to get one of those two games. And if they get that first one Wednesday, that is a problem because then they got a chance to go up 3-1. If they get to 3-1, they'll win the series.
Well, I mean, the thing about it is that, look at it, both of them, what have they been striving off of this whole playoffs? Coming back from deficits, double-digit deficits. I mean, even though they beat Milwaukee pretty easily, each time Milwaukee found a way to lose the game.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you think about it. I mean, then that one play they threw the lob pass that somehow Butler caught, he pushed off, but somehow he caught it and made that. And then it was all kind of fiascos with the Bucks. I was like, what are you guys doing? I know Giannis got hurt, but you guys won one of the games Giannis was out. Mm-hmm. So then they played New York, and you knew New York wasn't going to be able to conjure up another good series. So I knew that was going to be a walkthrough. Then you go to the Boston one. Boston, once again, you thought that they would learn their lesson from last year against the Warriors where they fell apart. Another series they had won, and they just put it to them. You know, turnover machine. Jaylen Brown, turn the ball over. I said that all throughout the playoffs. It's like, dude, your handles are horrible. Stop trying to dribble through a crowd. You're not and one. Let's give up the ball. Just shoot the jumper. Back somebody down, shoot the jumper. Don't try to dribble because it's a disaster. Then Jason,
Mike,
you know,
they need I'm sorry to cut you off, but to your point, the Celtics need a true point guard. I think.
But that's what Brogdon was supposed to be. When they went and got Brogdon, they said, "Oh, this you won't have to worry about. We don't have to worry about the point guard that didn't get it done last year." Yeah, but it ended up being that Brogdon ended up still coming off the bench, and he was still the point guard. So it was basically a bad pickup. And think about it. With him out, that's when they made that long run. They won 3 straight. Look like they're going to win Game 7. He comes back for Game 7. They come out flat.
On top of that, Mike, consider the money that walked away when Miami walked off the court. They go up 3-0, and then Boston comes back, ties it at 3-3. And if you're parlay, the money gets bundled up, it multiplies again and again and again, so that by Game 7, everybody in that stadium, if they weren't betting, they were thinking about it. And that kind of money is the kind of money where a casino just smiles and say, the house always wins. When Miami won the way they won, I was not surprised.
And the ratings.
Yes.
This is not a sexy series. Even though people say, oh, Miami is this American Caribbean city, and it's so fantastic, South Beach and Ocean Drive, but the team is boring. Mm-hmm. The team is boring. Everybody's looking at it like, how are they even here? This is not the sexy Miami team with LeBron now, but this is more like a team they would probably consider in the South or the Midwest. Like the lunch pail, and all that. And then Denver, once again, they were the best team in the West all year, but boring. So I'm not sure how the ratings are going to show up, but, they always try to say the ratings are bad anyway. They try to say the ratings are bad in the bubble, which it was Miami against LA, but still, people will watch to see LeBron, either to watch him win or to watch him fail.
Yes,
so that's money for the NBA with LeBron being in the finals. And they were lamenting when he ended up in LA and they didn't make it, because remember, he was in 8 straight finals. That was money for the NBA.
Yes, that's true.
Yeah, I mean these TV networks, they when they get a product, man, they stick with it. I'm watching the World of Golf now, and they've had Tiger Woods for the past 25 years. It was instant ratings and money. Tiger's gone now,
Yeah.
so everybody's scrambling. Our great friend Jared Wiley's checking in. To Michael Roberson's point, that's why I said there's the reason why the Pistons, if they were to acquire someone similar to Butler, should not be making noise too. It's like they're spinning their wheels. It will be interesting to see what Monty Williams does. Thank you for that, Jared. And the Pistons just hired Monty Williams, who was recently fired by Phoenix, and his new deal is could pay up to $100 million. And hey, good to see that brother getting paid, and see what he can do in more time. You got to find some players, as you well know, Jared. The Pistons got some nice young players, but they got to add to what they have there, for sure. But Mike, going back to your thing, Mike Ingram, and we're going to get into the impact of sports betting on, I was going to say pro sports, but all sports.
Yeah.
Nowadays, because there's some situations going in the NFL we're going to talk about. But I want to get you two guys' thoughts on this series going forward. Mike Ingram, we got game 3 Wednesday in Miami.
Well, it's an unknown factor because get a matchup that's never happened before in a championship game. On top of all of that, you have the reality of, okay, Game 7, Miami, Boston, at the beginning of the show, in the pregame, they put up a parlay. Now, the XFL, if you guys remember, had started this a couple of years ago before they went out of business and came back again. They put the line up, they put the points up, they put all the goals that were achieved, and they said, y'all do this, we get that. And that's exactly what they did. Butler had to score 25 points. I believe it was Tatum had to score 30. White had to put in at least 2 threes, and somebody else had to put in a 3. They put all these things together in order to tease. I mean, they were prop bets, just like the Super Bowl. And they just got bundled into a parlay, and people went to them like moth to flame. Now, I can't say it was Super Bowl money, but it was a good chunk of money that passed out of people's pockets and into the coffers because they had come back for 3-0. And, of course, you all know the Celtic mystique always comes through in a Game 7.
Yeah, at the Garden, even though it's TD Garden now.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, Mike, your thoughts on this current series going forward?
Which Mike?
Mike Ingram.
Going forward, I'd say Denver's put themselves in a position to succeed. Now, I think about Isla Vanderway and Alex English and Fat Lever and all those great players that graced them before. And they are the last ABA team to make it to the championship and stuff. I have a feeling there's not a wow factor, but it's not a plain vanilla factor like San Antonio. I'm sure the TV execs used to get pissed when San Antonio would show up all the time with Duncan and Robertson and Ginobili and Parker and they're dull as dishwater to them. Not that they don't care that it's a good basketball team. Right. Denver, there's some X factors here, Jokic and Murray, etc. So there may be a spark. It's all in how they do it. So if they play well at the top of their game, how those 4 games turn out for Denver will say everything about how well they come across for the TV.
Michael, your thoughts going forward, game 3 Wednesday.
Well, I mean, it showed that Denver wasn't invincible like people tried to portray them.
Mm-hmm.
After how they beat the Lakers. And I said this before, all 4 games the Lakers should have won. but they found some way to lose. But when it's all said and done, they lost, so it was a sweep. That's the bottom line. This is their first loss at home, first loss at altitude. So how will they react to that? Are they shell shocked now? Because you can look at a couple situations where once you had that big loss, you're not able to recover from it. Yeah. So let's go back to 95. Nick Anderson from Chicago.
Oh, God, yes.
Missed those free throws, missed multiple free throws.
Yeah.
And instead of them being up 1-0 over the 6th seed Rockets, they blow that game, never recovered, got swept. LeBron absolutely going crazy in 18 against the Warriors, who should have been eliminated by Houston, but they survived that. And LeBron's just going off, and it looks like it's one of these great performances. It's like, even with Durant, LeBron is just killing these guys. They have a fiasco where George Hill goes to the free throw line, shooting 80%, 85% or whatever, missed the free throw. J.R. Smith gets the rebound, could put it back up and win the game, dribbles it back out. They go to overtime, lose. Instead of being up 1-0 over the Warriors, they're down 1-0 and get swept. So this could be a situation where they don't recover from this because, hey, this is the first time we've had adversity in Denver. I was going to say Nichols, but that's way back. But this is our first time, losing at home in the playoffs and, even before that. So how they react to that will tell a lot because this is their first moment of losing at home and losing home court advantage.
So neither one of you think, I'm assuming both you guys think Denver has the better roster, but neither one of you think they are significantly better.
Well, because for me, it's because it's the first time. It's their first time in the finals. They've always been coming up short. Even in the bubble, they were supposed to have been good, but the Lakers took it to them. And ironically, AD is the one that pretty much put the nail in their coffin when he hit that jumper and yelled out Kobe. And of course, the Lakers were inspired by the death of Kobe too during that time frame. So there's a lot of factors that went there. But Denver was a really good team during that time. Then Jamal Murray gets hurt and they just fall off and fade into oblivion while Joker is getting back-to-back MVP. So it's like, well, this guy's the best player in basketball. Look what he has to deal with. He doesn't have his star sidekick player here. And then when Jamal comes back, it's that rust period. So he finally exploded against the Lakers. But, they made him look pretty mediocre in this last game. They're pretty much saying, hey, Joker is awesome, but if you really look at that Lakers series, it was Jamal Murray that pretty much did them in. So this is important. Now, Miami is not like Miami has like a stranglehold of home court either. You know how fickle those fans are. When Ray Allen hit that shot, you had fans outside the doors because they left early.
And he ran back inside. I remember that.
No, they didn't let him back in. They had to stay outside. Yeah, and so like, and Miami's always been considered a horrible sports city for fans because it's always the old axiom. Well, it's just so much more to do down there. You could go to the beach and you can go this, play golf and all that. Same thing with San Diego. All these warm weather cities. When their fan base is horrible, they'll say, well, just too much other things to do. But, so we'll see. We'll see if they get down there and say, hey, you guys messed up by giving us home court because we're going to take advantage of it. But we just saw that Boston won multiple games in Miami. So we'll see.
And my game, and then we're going to move on to some other stuff. But do you think that the Nuggets are that roster is significantly better or just better, just a little better?
I think because Jokic came in and played the way he did the last couple of years beforehand, it gives them the impression that they're better. Jamal Murray is a great player, and they have some nice pieces and stuff like that, but there's nothing that screams like they're going to be world beaters or stuff like that. They came in there because they got a solid roster. Not great, not scrubs, but they're solid. And sometimes that's enough. Unfortunately, the hype machines that the NBA is, they want to create this thing about a team's a super team. and they just can't satisfy themselves with, we're watching some talented guys here, and they're playing as a team, and they won. Sometimes that's enough, and sometimes that's all you need to say instead of trying to make something up.
And one thing about Denver, man, that bench is really short.
Yeah.
They go to Bruce Brown and Jeff Green, and that's about it, really.
Well, Green's what, 36 years old?
Yeah. And Braun played 15 minutes the other night, whereas Miami's bench, Cal Lowry has just been tough for them, man. He played 23 minutes. Duncan Robinson has found his shot again. Really gave him a spark last night. Then you got Cody Martin, who has Caleb Martin, who's been
Caleb Martin. Yeah.
Caleb Martin, who was just great for them in the last year. So they certainly, I think, have an advantage coming off the bench. And they stuck Love in the lineup last night, and he only had 6 points, but he had 10 rebounds.
Yep.
And Bam Adebayo just loves having him in there with him, especially going up against the big guy Joker. So we'll keep an eye on this. Man, I have no dog in this fight whatsoever. I just hope it's a great series to end the year. Jared, a healthy Murray, in my opinion, is the difference for the team. The Nuggets have nice pieces, but without Murray, they would struggle. And I think you're right, Jared. And when he doesn't play well, they struggle. Yeah, as Mike Roberson was saying last night, he had 18 points, but he's got to score more than that to even with the Joker going off like he did last night. But we'll see what's happening there. Hey, Mike Ingram was talking about the National Football League earlier. Or was it me talking about the NFL? I don't know. But anyway,
it wasn't me.
But anyway, I know you guys have been keeping up with the stories going on about the gambling problem and the I'm not going to say a gambling problem. Some investigations going on in the NFL regarding players betting on games. And the latest news comes out of Indianapolis, where a player is being looked at for betting on games and possibly betting on a Colts game.
Right.
And earlier in the summer, earlier in the spring, there were some players who were suspended. The Lions' first-round draft pick for last year, Jameson Williams, was suspended 6 games for betting on, I believe it was college football games. The Lions' locker room. If he'd have been on Woodward, downtown Detroit, done it, he'd have been fine. But because he did it from the locker room, that's a problem. But Mike, both Mikes, and I'll start with Mike Ingram this time. I was reading today when the NFL went into partnership with the gambling sites a couple years ago, they were hoping to make $270 million. Those were the estimates. They ended up making $1.8 billion. The NFL they partnered with all the sites, DraftKings.
That's right.
Whomever your favorite gambling service.
DraftKings, FanDuel, Ladbrokes over in the UK. They didn't realize just how much money was in the mix. They decided that this was another revenue stream. They didn't figure on how big the stream was going to be. They've taken players and their own human natures have, for better or worse, poisoned the credibility of the game. Calvin Ridley's a perfect example. Ridley played for the Falcons, and it was his transition year on a contract. He was going to make money. So if you were going to bet on yourself. He was guaranteed at least a $10 million contract, 3 years. And, he's not a great receiver. He's a good receiver. But the fact that he was available put him in the mix for some money. He got greedy, spent, was it $1,500 or something like that, and got caught. And it's like, dumb bunny, look what you just did. You had to sit a whole year, and they had to check to see if this guy was kosher, because you don't know whether or not somebody's going to shave points, or in the case of being a receiver, drop a game-winning pass to secure a game for somebody else. All these things now people got to ask questions about. And what the Putty Tats did with the 4 or 5 players there just makes it worse. There would probably be even more players if they weren't afraid of the fact that they would mess their own things up from the money that's in the mix. But there's so much money, it's hard to ignore.
So Mike Robinson, is that why the NFL decided to, you know what, this could be some issues, but as Mike Ingram was saying, it's too much money to turn around. Because, see, it's just hypocritical to me.
All right.
Y'all can deal with gambling, but y'all don't want these brothers to gamble.
Right.
And I get the integrity of the game part for sure.
Right. Mm-hmm. But here's a hypocrisy right here. So this desert city that, was basically founded by gamblers or by the mafia out in the middle of the Silver State, that was a taboo place to have a pro team. Remember that? Mm-hmm. Remember how much mess went on when the college team was treated like an NBA team?
Yeah.
UNLV. So all that hoopla was going on there. Look what we have now. We have the Raiders came from up here, down there, and now Tom Brady's going to be involved with them. And they even Garoppolo may not even play, and they gave him that money. And then you got the baseball team more than likely to be headed down there from Oakland down to Vegas. And then they have the WNBA who won, but they're on the verge of a hockey team winning.
Yeah.
So now we got the 4 major sports, and they get a championship. And they were almost a winner their inaugural season. That was like amazing that they had an expansion team was in the finals year 1.
Mike, I'd say they were winning that first season because they upset everybody's apple cart by playing the way they did. All these scenarios that were for an expansion team did not apply to the Vegas Golden Knights.
Right.
They defied all the odds and came in and played a style of hockey that the league wasn't ready for. Now, they've been in the league 6 years. They've been to the finals twice. That's a hell of an average for a hockey team, and a hell of an average for an expansion team. They had people doing things different ways, as the Seattle Kraken made the playoffs for the first time in only 2 years. So even though the first year was significant in terms of going to the Stanley Cup Finals, they've set the bar high, and other teams have conformed and fit in. And these are markets that are not traditional hockey markets. In Canada, they're screaming bloody murder because the Americans have really gotten their shit together, and they're playing really, really well.
Yeah.
And speaking of Vegas, Mike, they're building a new arena right there, right now. And there's talk of LeBron James buying that franchise. Mm-hmm. When the franchise comes there, LeBron's going to be one of the owners. So it's only a matter of time before we have the NBA. And like you said, do not deal with Vegas whatsoever. Right. We want
so they may go from zero, to quote Drake, 0 to 100 real quick, but they may go from 0 teams to 4. I mean, when you got the 4 major sports in your city, you're a major league city.
That's right.
And so you got to have
This
all
has
four.
Oakland.
Well, Mike, you said Oakland may be going down. I thought that was a done deal. That's not.
Well, I mean, there's still some stuff where they're trying to, hoping that Vegas will say, nah, you know what, we don't want to vote for this, or there's still a inkling of hope. And then they also think that the Warriors might try to. I've heard this, that the Warriors might try to, put their hand in there and say, hey, we want to keep this team around, even though they abandoned ship and went across the bay. But who am I? But yeah, but that's a great point about that, how Vegas was like, market size, like in the hundreds back when I got out of school, because, I'm sending resumes all over. And then now that market has grown so much. And now, like I said, they might have 4 pro and WNBA, because
that's right.
So they have it going on in all different ways. And then, of course, I'm not sure if MLS is going to be there or not, but they would have just the gamut of it. And you really ask yourself, is there a real fan base there, or is that more the transient people coming in, or the people coming in? Is there really a solid base? But they managed to keep these teams thriving. And like I said, if the Golden Knights win this title, I mean, they're absolutely legit to have a major league title, like we said, in about 5 or 6 years, and to have a WNBA team that's, really marquee. And then if baseball comes down there, and let's say they get awesome attendance down there, that would basically make Oakland look horrible, because I don't know if you guys see any highlights of these Oakland games.
Yeah,
you guys could hear each other talk across the field. It's just sad. It's sad.
That's too bad, because the A's have always been. I always kind of enjoyed. I always enjoyed watching them play, especially when Reggie was there.
Yeah,
especially back in the day when they had those sparkling uniforms, the gold and green.
Yep.
Look, as a kid, we just getting color TV, man. So you like
that's right.
Them white helmets, man. I mean, and the swagger they played with was just we really hadn't seen anything like it, and they won 3 straight World Series playing that way.
Well, check this out, Ricky.
They
played it. And I don't want to give any secrets away, with us, our group, but they did 72, 73, 74, or was this? Right. Yeah. And then it was 88, 89, 90. But they only won one that time. They won one out of 3. They got swept by the Reds in 90, and then 88 they lost to Kirk Gibson's one-legged self.
Right.
and that was the earthquake. That year.
No, that was 89 against the Giants. Yeah, it was against the Giants. So that was such an anomaly that, hey, you got the World Series centered in the Bay Area. You had the National League team on this side of the Bay and the American League team on this side of the Bay. So I don't know how the ratings were, before the earthquake, but a lot of people on the East Coast are like, nobody wants to see that. But then when the earthquake happened, it was really an afterthought. So the A's won that one, but then the next year, they got smoked by the Reds, and then you had the whole situation when what's his name got hurt, and they were talking about how Marge Shot basically left him there or whatever. Outfielder, I'm forgetting his name now, from LA.
Eric Davis.
Eric Davis, yeah. So that was that controversy there. Then that people were asking, hey, La Russa, are you really that good? Because you didn't get it done with the White Sox with winning ugly in 83. And then you had this powerhouse Bash Brothers, but you only won 1 World Series out of those 3. And that was during an earthquake. So, so he was getting questioned. Then I think he got swept his first one through St. Louis Cardinals. So there are a lot of people questioning his leadership even though the A's were good back then. And then they had another good run with Giambi and all that. But then the whole Moneyball thing, he became more of a star, where the team was like, whenever they get a good player, sell them off, because this makes money sense. And then it became like it became ridiculous out here. People were like, come on, man, do we ever get a good team? We're gonna always be the poor sisters of the league, and you're right here in one of the largest markets and definitely richest.
It was like disco. The producer became the star instead of the player.
Exactly. Yeah. But it was like an oxymoron here. It was like you got this big market San Francisco Giants, but then you go across the bay. Hey, this is a small market team. Like, you're in the same market. I don't get it. It's almost like that's the White Sox and the Cubs.
Hey, I do want to get back to the football, Mike, because I'm wondering as we go forward with this the gambling thing, it ain't going away.
Right.
They ain't going back. They ain't going to. You know what? We don't want to do it. What are your concerns with the NFL in particular, and the gambling? I don't know what you would call it.
Allegations?
No, they have decided to go into business with the gambling side.
Well, yeah. I mean,
well, I was going to Mike. I'll get to you. I wanted Michael Lewis, Ingram, and then come back to you, Mike.
Well, they wanted to come to bed with the fact that the NFL realized we can be partners and they can't go further than that. But the poison of the gambling, the allure of it, spreads to everybody. I can remember a game where, I believe it was Baltimore playing against Cleveland, and Jackson got hurt during the game, came off the bench. He threw a 7 route late in the game that allowed them to score a touchdown. As they kicked the kickoff with time running out, they tried to flip the ball to this guy and that guy. The ball ends up rolling around the end zone. Baltimore falls on it, and they win by 6 instead of the 2 points that they were favored by. So it broke up the odds and shifted everything. And I remember somebody from the stands, not the stands, excuse me, one of the talking heads saying, I lost money on that bet. I also remember games where people were playing, somebody screaming, I bet on you, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
You know, and it's like, what do you want? They know what's going on. The league knows what's going on. When Goodell became commissioner, his prime mission was to expand. He was to expand the league. He wanted to go different places. He wanted to go abroad. But the gambling made him put all of that in reverse and say, no, my focus is I want to make us money. I'm getting $40 million and getting paid by billionaires to make more money, and we can do this with gambling. Fantasy football, FanDuel, DraftKings, everybody who can bet is smiling because this is a tap that will never run dry.
Hey, Mike Ross, I wonder what the gamblers thought when that play we just saw happen in Vegas.
Yeah, I mean, and the thing about it is that, for college, that's where most of the scandals were back in the beginning, because they were unpaid workers, and so the lure of getting a little bit of money under the table was like, hey man, you know what? I don't know if I'm going pro. I'm hungry every day. We got our per diem, but it's not enough to really survive. I'm around here with all these, students with nice cars and money and all this stuff. So hey, I can get a little money.
And the coach is making
right, exactly,
$5-6 million.
Right. So that was the allure then. And then if the pro players like, why would I mess something up like that? I'm getting paid pretty well. But then of course, when we talk about Alex Karras before the acting, we look at that as a deterrent. But like I said though, you got the gambling, and then fantasy football is absolutely huge. People look at it as, this is a little fun stuff on the internet. But that has a big bearing on what happens. And then let's not forget the other elephant in the room is the military.
Yeah.
Look how much the military is invested in the NFL for them to sit there and have a basically code of ethics and basically put on a commercial every week. Every week in every stadium is a commercial for the military, and then they're always honoring the military, which is not the worst thing, but I'm just saying it's forced patriotism in my opinion. And it really came to a head with the whole Kaepernick deal, and then some people finally realized that whole national anthem was a sham anyway. But and dealing with all the corruption was going on with Woodrow Wilson, but that's another story. But just the whole thing is, we're forcing you with the military. They're paying us to make sure that the league is military, pro-military. And then you got the presidents and vice presidents coming in saying, hey, well, get that guy out the league and do this. And then the NFL actually acquiescing about that, with Kaepernick. Basically they say, you know what? We don't want Trump mad at us, so we might need to find a way to collude and keep this guy out the NFL because, we don't want that. And then let's not also forget the NASCAR crowd and all the country music slant that's going on in the NFL. So there's a lot of different angles that they're using, but gambling definitely is a big influence now. And it was even big when they keep showing you the lines. Why do we need to see the lines?
Thank you.
Well, it's just for fun. It's just for fun, just for fun. No, it's because gambling is a huge part of the NFL for years and years and years.
And these new leagues, I believe the XFL and USFL, they just put it out there for you, man.
Right. Thank you. They do. That's exactly right. They put it out there, and you can just hit the mark, bet the over, the under. Even if you don't want to bet the points, all you got to do is let both sides score and count.
Yeah.
And you're hooked.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we'll keep our eye on that going forward. I mean, hey guys, in fact, you think about it, training camps will be opening up in a few weeks. You got mini camps going on all over the country, and when we talked about the gambling, it's not just the NFL. It's Major League Baseball. It's soccer. Of course, the NBA, hockey, the PGA Tour. Who's gonna make the cut? I mean, it is absolutely. You can get a damn bet on anything.
Well, let's not forget they have all these poker tournaments on TV.
That's right.
When the HBCU games play, they bet whose band's going to win the halftime.
Yeah, no kidding.
No. But somebody would place a bet on that. Who you like in the halftime show, FAMU or Southern?
Well, here's another one. Here's a bet. Here's a prop bet. Where's Shannon going to end up?
How about that?
Speaking of, that's a great segue, Mike. The big news in the sports media world is Shannon Sharp is leaving his show with Skip Bayless, and I don't know how long Shannon was there, but if I listen, I can almost hear him talking now. so loud. But Mike Roberson, they made a lot of noise and a lot of news over their course of time together. And it's something people are going to talk about. Your thoughts?
Well, I haven't interacted with him yet. How some players you've met over the time, but I never interacted with him. Skip never interacted with him, but I've been in the same market with him. He was out here for a while, but I never kind of run into him at a game. Ironically, when you were a youngster, he was across town at Vanderbilt.
Yeah, he went to Vandy. Yeah,
he went to Vandy. Yeah. So I always, if I ever met him, I wanted to talk to him about that. Like, what was going on with you over at Vandy when TSU had Too Tall and all those guys over there? But but Shannon, I did interact with Shannon's brother, Sterling. So that's the funny thing about it, is that Sterling was on the Packers and I covered them, and I had a funny story with him. So at the time, when Sterling was playing with the Packers were still playing 3 games in Milwaukee. So that was big for me because my show was on Sunday night. So there's no way I could drive up to Green Bay and it's probably snowing and get back in time to do my show. So I would pretty much just go to the Milwaukee games. And so, and actually his career pretty much ended the last game in County Stadium because they played those 3 games at County Stadium where the Brewers played. So it was a play, it looked like an innocuous play, but it was against the Falcons. And Sterling went down. But
that's what the stinger.
Yeah, I think he had the stinger, and then he came back and played another game. And I think that's when they said it was too much discomfort. And when he checked it out with the medical staff, they said, "You better not play anymore. You might be done." And that's pretty much ended his career. Then he was getting a little behind the back talk about him from Brett Favre. I was like, wow. But anyway, so I had a little funny story with him where at the time, because in this profession, sometimes you have to circumvent your income. No pun intended. But I was selling cars too. I was selling Mitsubishis, right? So, and he wasn't talking to the media at the time. So, hey, man, why don't you break your silence on my show? Come on, Sterling. Let me be the guy that you break your silence with. And then he said, no, I can't do that. I said, all right, well, check this out then. How about you buy a 3000 GT from me? That was like the sports car from Mitsubishi. Yep. He said, man, unless you guys sell Ferraris, I'm not interested. I said, brother, I'm sorry to insult your taste. All right, we're good. That's nothing wrong. Yes, but then all of a sudden, I saw Shannon blew up. So I said, oh, man, his younger brother is like pretty good too. And then, and that's been the thing. So I had a good reaction and little interaction with Sterling, but I haven't met Shannon yet. But I actually did watch that show. I can't. The other one's First Take and all that. You talk about Shannon being loud, screaming A. Smith. Come on, okay. Yeah. So, but Shannon, it was funny, and it was kind of a balance. But we know Skip's whole spiel was, let me talk all I can negatively about LeBron. It's gonna give me so many clicks, and everybody's gonna watch this show because of that. And then if I have a guy across from me that supports LeBron, that's going to really make great TV. And I'm sure that's what his angle was. But it got really personal when he got into it, talking about how you're jealous of Tom Brady and you are never as good as he was, and that really hurt Shannon. And that this got to be part of it. And then another situation was when, let me see. It was a few situations where it's like you could say, was that the moment? Just like when people say when KD and Draymond had the argument, that was the reason why he left. So you can probably pinpoint a couple situations, or maybe he's ready to branch off. He has his own podcast, Club Shay Shay. He got his little drink on that I think he named after his grandmother. So maybe it's time for him to venture out. So it may not be as bad as people think. Like, well, Skip pretty much forced him out of there. But it might just be, he felt like it's time to make a move.
Gerald says Shannon was at Fox 6 or 7 years. I think it was a good move to leave because Skip made him look bad at times. Your thought on this, Mike Lewis Ingram, if you got any thoughts?
Jared's right. Skip made Shannon look bad. But if I remember the Boondocks and Brother Magruder always talking about having that end moment, I forget when exactly Shannon went off live I think it was at CBS. He was railing about something. I think it was racially oriented, but the whole point was he got in everybody's behind, and Marino and all of them got quiet real quick. And it's like nobody would say nothing. It's like, let's not get this brother any madder. And everybody knew that Sharp was a little bit on the loquacious side, but the bottom line was he always spoke with conviction. And it was one of those deals where, what do we do with this? And somebody said, hire him, give him a job because he made more points in that one rant than some of these talking heads that made all season long. So he got noticed by accident, but he was definitely there to stay because he had stuff that was of merit. He knew his subject matter, unlike a lot of other talking heads, and it made it easier for us to hear him.
I tell you, I guess it's my old school journalism, Mike, and Mike Lewis Ingram, Michael Lewis Ingram. We got a few years on that baby brother Michael Roberson here. So we grew up in a time where, I mean, the writers and that, I mean, it's almost like these guys are doing more entertaining than giving insights now.
Yeah. That's the problem.
Yep.
They don't know when to draw the line between being a journalist and being an entertainer.
Right.
You know, if you're informing, you're entertaining. That's where they get mixed up. See, David Aldridge, his copy used to sing. You could read his stuff and say he's entertaining and he's informing you.
Right.
Very few of these guys know how to mix the two because they don't know what the hell they're talking about. And Shannon's one of the 2 or 3 that he knows what in the ham sandwich he's talking about. And you really can't refute him. If you got to argue with him, it's got to be a football argument. And even if it is, why argue with the guy? Because he's been there, he's done that. And it's like, all you're going to do is, unless you're one of those analytics guys, you're going to make yourself look bad. It's like, no, keep the thing within the realm of your sport. That might make for a boring show, but it makes your show accurate.
Yeah. You know, during my years as a sports columnist, I mean, I wrote about all things Michigan, from the pro teams to the college teams, and all I'm doing is giving this opinion. It doesn't make me an expert on any of this. I might have some insights from being around the team and talking to the players, and you try to work those kind of details into your copy. But how the hell am I supposed to know how to run the Pistons, Tigers, Red Wings, and Lions? Come on. But I was paid to give my 2 cents on all of that. And the whole time I did it, the whole 35 years I did it, don't get me wrong, brothers, I love what I did. But I always thought it was kind of stupid. They paying me to do this. You know, the only thing I really know a lot about that he gives some pretty good insight on is golf, because I'm really good at it and been around it. So that would make me somewhat of an expert on that game.
Well,
all these guys. No, go ahead, Mike.
Well, I'm just saying that the other thing that really set him off was when the brother collapsed in Buffalo.
Yes.
And then Skip made some comment about, well, they should have kept the game going, or why did it take so long to make an announcement, or why did they cancel the game? So then Shannon decided not to come in the next day. He said, I'm taking that off because dude really upset me there. And then when he came back, he was trying to give his spiel about why he wasn't there. Then Skip kept interrupting him because he said, you know what? I thought you were going to come on here and, say what you call. He said, well, I was told that I didn't have to say anything about it. I'm going to stand by what I said. So then it got really awkward there because it's like he was cutting him off. He was like saying basically, look, I stand by what I'm saying. They're not going to make me change my mind. He basically said, I'm not a black dude. They ain't going to force me to bow down. That's basically what he kind of told Shannon there, that, I'm not going to do like what Stephen A. and you and whoever else black that says something and they bully you and even Kyrie and all that. So he said, that's not going to happen to me, basically. And then that really infuriated him. Plus that other one when he was saying Tom Brady's not playing that well, and then that set Skip off to basically discredit his career, and that's when that got ugly. So those are the 2 major points. And then, of course, all throughout the years, he's been doing the condescending stuff to him anyway.
Yeah, it's the media business, as we all know, it is absolutely crazy. and it's never been crazier. Well, fortunately for me, I'm on the outside looking in now. So, but I still know enough to know it's crazy out there today. Man, this hour has flown by, man, and Mike, we got to have you back because we got some stuff we hadn't had a chance to get into. But before we go, I do want to play this. Let me see if I can get it to come.
Talking about cash backing.
Oh, Lord.
Not a game. Not a game.
We talking about cash back.
We talking about cash backing.
We're not talking about practice.
No, we talking about cash backing.
We talking about cash back.
We talking about cash back.
Not a game.
We've been talking about practice for too long.
Word.
No practice. We talking about cash backing.
We talking about cash back.
I mean, we not talking about a game.
Cash back like a pro with Chase Freedom Unlimited. How do you cash back?
I wish you could cash back by smacking the black off of somebody, because Kevin Hart would definitely get smacked, pimp hand style. Unfortunately, that was one of a series of spots that Chase created. Kevin Hart and Steph Curry first started it with a spot for the card saying that Kevin Hart had bought the team, and he was saying, theoretically, I saved so much from the percentages from purchasing stuff with the cash card that I got enough to buy the team. Now, what they didn't show you was that until the second spot, he's wearing a shirt that says Cash Brothers and there's a dollar sign. So he was referring to the Cash Money Brothers from the movie New Jack City. Then in the next spot, he says, we're talking about cash backing. And they go off like you just saw. Now, this was a slap at Allen Iverson and the infamous practice press conference. What some folks don't know is that Iverson lost somebody in his inner circle. And he went to the Sixers about, getting some private time, I guess, so he could deal with the situation. And they basically went Laura Ingraham on him and said, shut up and dribble. And that's when he came out and said, we talk about practice, not a game, et cetera, et cetera. That Kevin Hart mocked him was a high point of toxicity in being an ignorant Negro, because I don't mind the brother making money. Make your paper. As Cat Williams would say, make your paper, boo-boo. But you don't have to do it by being ignorant. You could have said there's different ways to do it. You could have taken a different approach. You chose to do this because it was going to get a rise out of somebody. And sometimes that's not always the way to go. It was insulting. And I took some of my money and went to a credit union and opened up. And I think everybody should go to a credit union, or at least consider a credit union, because I have a Chase account. I had it. It just wasn't as big. When people look at you and disrespect your wallet, that's a double insult, because it's like you have money. It's like back in the day when some folks gave white folks $300 to $500 to buy Cadillacs so they could drive them, because they wouldn't sell to black people. I mean, what Kevin Hart did was unforgivable, because you knew better.
And now even AI was in that spot with him.
Yeah, it's not it wasn't done out of ignorance. They knew exactly what they were doing, and Iverson, for being as great a player as he was a real human being with foibles and all that stuff. And that practice episode, WIP, the station in Philly, ran that thing to the ground. And Howard Eskin, who was a vampire, should have lost his job and had his career ruined by it, but they let him off the hook, and they let him read off an apology for stuff they had done to Iverson. But there's a cumulative effect to this. And that's just simply that every time you see it, it's like, well, now they run them out to 6 o'clock. But every time you see the spot, it's like, we can say what we want to y'all. We don't care how much money y'all have, real or perceived. This is what we think about you. And it's an ugly thing to have to perceive and feel. Like Marley used to say, he feels it, knows it. I feel it every time I see that spot. And I want to go strangle Kevin Hart every time I see it, because we know they're saying it doesn't matter how much money you have, you're still you know what. Kevin Hart was playing the role and gladly playing the fool.
Well, but let's just be devil's advocate. What if Kevin Hart says, I'm a Philly native and I'm paying homage to my guy Iverson on this commercial?
I know what you're saying, and there's some validity to that, but they don't think about, especially in Philly, they don't think about black athletes the same way they think about white ones. You know, if this was Mike Trout we were talking about, no complaints. If this was Bryce Harper, no complaints. But because it's Iverson, because it might be Jalen Hurts, because it might be any other black player, you have to think twice. There's always, how can I say, something underneath the intent of what they do that makes it as pernicious. And, you know, I was feeling some kind of way when I saw it the first time, and it hasn't changed. So maybe it's just me being an old fart, but I'm telling you, me seeing it, it makes me angry.
Hey, quickly before we get out of here, it sounds like John Morant is really going to get some discipline thrown. He may get slam dunked on after the series is over by the NBA.
Well, I got two comments before we get out of here. But keep going.
No, I'll just say, you know where I'm going with this John Morant. I'll just go right to you.
Well, I'm just saying those. You know, there's a picture floating around now with Chris Kaman, former player and of course Caucasian, was on the internet, early days of internet, with multiple guns, and basically had the hashtag NRA, and it said, "This is what I'm going to take to this city or whatever." And it was basically he looked at as, well, he's a hunter, or he's a sportsman, so this is okay. But then you turn around and you got a guy, basically brandishing a gun. We don't know if it's loaded. We don't know if it's play, whatever the case is. But it's like, now that's so heinous.
Mm-hmm.
And wow, we don't care if he didn't break any laws. It's just unheard of. How dare you put that in front of the public? There's kids watching him. So it's always that, double standard. So, and Chris Kaman is, I don't have any issues with him, but I'm saying, why do we look at things differently like that? Like, well, he's okay with the gun, but it's almost like, back in the 60s when the Panthers was walking around with the gun and legally, and they said,
he changed up on that.
That doesn't seem safe there.
Mm-hmm.
So, but then the other thing I was going to talk about is, before we go, is it's kind of I'm not going to put it into like, we losing people like Jim Brown and all that, but some disappointing news out here in the Bay Area. One of the longest running women's only tennis tournament is no more as of now, because it was the Bank of the West when it was at Stanford, and then it moved over to San Jose and became the Mubadala Silicon Valley Classic. It's still going to bury that name, but it won't be called Silicon Valley. It's moving to DC, and it's going to make a connection with the men's tournament. So they won't have the distinction of being the longest running women's tournament anymore. But I say that because it was some of the greatest players came out here. Like last year we had Osaka and Coco, and Madison Keys too. And then, of course, Serena and Venus were out here. So the Sharapova. So a lot of history is gone. Billie Jean King got this started. And I think it still has some of the luster but it's going to be co-opted with the men's tournament, and it's going to be in DC. And it basically sideswiped us because I was all set to go to this tournament down in 31st down in San Jose. And then they made the announcement a couple of days ago, and it's going to be in DC instead. So for the people that nationally and internationally that watch us, yeah, that was a thing that I went to since 2009, and it's going to be disappointing not to be able to see those great players. Even though I went and see Naomi this year anyway, because she's about to become a mother. And but just to see the young Coco and know that she's about to grow up into a star. I don't have that option anymore unless I go across the country.
Coco won today.
Right.
Roland Garros. And Mike, your thoughts on John Morant before we go?
The league has been looking for a successor. Now, LeBron's put in 20 years. Nobody in the league, nobody out of the league, in all honesty, thought he'd last that long. They tried to break him down. They tried to find out where his weaknesses were. And early on, they could have destroyed him when they brought up Delonte West and his mama.
Mm-hmm.
That didn't happen because they realized it would have been an even bigger problem. Ever since then, they straightened everything out. LeBron's been a solid citizen. He's not going to get caught in a hotel room with an 8-year-old at 2 o'clock in the morning or any of the other crazy stuff.
Yeah.
And Morant, his improvement from 21 to 22 was significant. He went from 19 a game to about 28 a game. And everything screamed that he should be next. But he either couldn't handle success or success couldn't handle him. Either way, he showed he was out of control and lacked the maturity to handle the responsibility that would come with it. They gave LeBron money when he was a teenager, and they said, go make us some more money. And by the way, behave yourself. He didn't need to know that. He is already in point in terms of having a support system that would protect him and keep him on the straight and narrow. There's only one time when LeBron did something where you had to scratch your head, and that was when he took a photo for New York Magazine, and that cow, Annie Leibovitz, took a picture of him and Giselle Bundchen, and it was a cosplay on a poster called Destroy the Mad Brute, where this thing that looked like King Kong was ravaging the opponent, and LeBron did this kind of semi-menacing mug and had his arms around the helpless white woman and was like, oh, Lord have mercy, and that was the only time he got caught. Everything else he was on point on. Even when Barkley tried to come in and throw in a token insult, he said, I've been doing this 15 years and never had a problem. You got thrown through a plate glass window. Shut up. And Barkley had to shut up. Now, Morant never got thrown through a plate glass window, but being caught with the gun, being caught up at the club, that's made him a target. And the money that they were going to spend on this guy, let's just say they have to rethink things now, because even though the league's making money, even though there's money to get, it's the kind of money. John Morant went back into a gangster monolith, and it was like, you blew it. You blew it. You could have been just drinking soda and made a whole lot of money. You chose to go this route and screw it up.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not laughing. I'm just kind of. It's almost. It's like you're crying because it's just so ridiculous, man.
Yep.
The potential that young man had. And then you're right. I say it all the time. LeBron James should be the template for the 21st century athlete on how you do business on and off the court. But man, we
Wait. Let me just say this. Let me throw this little plug. He has something just came out on the second, Shooting Stars, which kind of goes back to him growing up with his teammates and how their friendship bloomed and all that. So Shooting Stars on Netflix, I do believe. So it's on one of the streaming services, Shooting Stars. Check it out.
You go to the movies now. This dude's making movies, sending kids to school, man. Got to buy an NBA team. Like you said, some kid for Akron. I nothing but respect for that brother.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, but we got to get out of here. I want to thank Michael Lewis Ingram. Where can people reach out?
Thank you,
Michael.
You can check us out at basnnewsroom.com. That's www.basnnewsroom, all one phrase.com. We go live every Wednesday, 9 p.m. Eastern with the Hump Day special. And we rebroadcast every now and then on Sunday or play music in between on Sundays. One way or another, we do our best to inform, and we do our best to make sure that you get to hear both sides of the story so that you won't be talking about not a game, but a broadcast.
And my great friend Mike Roberson, man, appreciate you, brother. We'll do it again this weekend. We're kind of mixing things up depending on how the basketball goes. Once the season's over, we'll get back on our regular schedule. But until then, everybody take care of themselves. Peace.
Peace. Take care.